And Nick, if you want to introduce yourself and jump in, you should be able to share your screen. And yeah, looking forward to the discussion.
Let's make it happen. Well, a 15-minute discussion on agents there and what agents are enabling us to do in the workplace today. I'm going to share my screen for most of the conversation here. A little bit about me. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, went to school out in Utah. I met actually in my group, breakout group, there were two of us or a number of us from Utah. And I'm always someone that I've loved understanding what state-of-the-art technology can do and then figuring out ways to apply it in the actual work that I'm working with. My background, I studied math and stats, and so I was pseudo-technical, I've always called myself. Always been more of a product person where I could connect dots really well and figure out what was valuable. For about 10 years of my career, 10, 11 years of my career, I really heavily relied on truly technical people, software engineers and architects to go build the things that I envisioned to help drive, whether it was the business I was working with previously or my own personal side projects. I was always the non-technical co-founder, and I was always looking for a technical co-founder. Uh, a lot of people will say, like, I was doing AI before Chat GPT. I didn't know how to spell AI before uh, November 30th, 2022, but Chat GPT came out. I was one of the first million users in like the first couple of days. And man, I got the bug very, very early on. I've always felt like I've lived two worlds, like the people who get AI and who are like staying up late, understanding this, reading the latest posts on X about it, or the people that say are concerned about it hallucinating, or they still think pictures generate with six fingers on them and things like that. And so there's been kind of this big dichotomy in my life. 8 months ago, I left my previous organization where I did software development and I built or software development, building out products and doing consulting. And I started my own company working with industrial distributors and supply houses to implement AI automations and solutions. My whole opinion on the AI era is for a long time, we were experiencing the capabilities through a chat interface. And for a while, I was building out my own automations and tools like N8N or Zapier, because that's what I was doing beforehand, because I couldn't write code and build things together. I knew AI tools were good at coding, but it was late last year, in September, October last year, I started using Claude Code for the first time. I went really deep, like a lot of people, over Christmas break. And I don't know if I've ever used an application more than Claude Code and now Codex and then a couple of other agents. So some of the slides that I have pulled up here that I just want to show you before I share my screen is this. When people talk about agents, I think we get it wrong. Like, a lot of people will say that a custom GPT is an agent. That is not the case for me. An agent is only something that goes out and does work. And it can do work recursively and do work autonomously, multi-state, multi-chain steps together. For me, nothing else is an agent. You have Copilot agents. Those are really just custom GPTs. They're LLMs that have some structured prompts around them. Agents are, I tell it to go generally accomplish some sort of task. It reasons, it understands tools, it uses context, and it goes and does something. For me, a lot of that is writing code. A huge breakthrough when it comes to these agents is this idea around connectivity, where the models are smart. They're pretty much as smart as they need to be. The more information we give them access to in our systems and in the various ways that we're working, they get more and more powerful. Uh, I want to share this. My favorite tools that I'm working with today, I'm going to primarily spend time in Claude Code, and then I'll show you some things in Codex. These are the three tools that I use day in and day out that I don't know how I would operate without them now. The first is a tool called Claude Cowork, which is a way for me to build, like, in the most non-technical way, automations and scheduled tasks that it will go out and access my systems and do things and take actions. Claude Cowork came out earlier this year. And fun fact, they say it was built entirely with Claude Code. But I'm using Claude Cowork. I'm using Claude Code for all of my software development today, and increasingly for business-related tasks as well. And then I'm also using a tool called Replit that some of the maybe more technical people on the call, I know some people that will turn up their nose at Replit. I've never encountered a tool that allows me to go from having an idea to something I can go show somebody and either sell or get buy-in on faster than Replit. I'm blown away at what these tools allow me to do. So without further ado, I'll jump in and I'll show you this. I'm going to primarily use the Claude application on my desktop now. And what I'm going to walk you through right now is just how I'm interacting with these tools, what this looks like, some of the quick tips and tricks that I have found for this to be helpful for me. I'm going to start with Claude Cowork, which Claude Cowork only exists on the desktop version of Claude. So you have to download it. And what's funny is literally every time I download this, there's an update, or every time I open it, there's an update that needs to run here. What Claude Cowork allows you to do is you can come in and yes, you can treat it like Claude and ask it questions, but you can also ask it to go do things for you. You can ask it to go read your emails and prepare responses. You can go ask it to go access systems on your computer and use them as if it was a human using them. And so the way that this works is you first have to make sure that you're giving it access to the plugins that of the tools that you're working within. Anthropic's always adding new ones within here. I pretty much give it access to everything. At this point, I've reviewed the security protocols and I'm comfortable with that risk that I'm taking. It's not for everybody. Everyone that I'm reading about that's doing really powerful things with AI, the connectivity is the breakthrough here. So you give it access to all these connectors. And then at this point, I can do things like I can say, hey, go find my emails from Hannah from Midday Connect. I want you to summarize these for me. And then I want you to write the follow-up emails. And in the future, let's set up an automation where check every day. If Hannah responds, I want you to send me a text message. I'm just making something up here. I can talk to it, give it some sort of action, and then tell it, hey, ongoing, I want you to go do this for me. And what the tool is going to do is it's going to break down and create a to-do list, a task list, and set this up where it will go accomplish all of those sort of asks for me. So this is going to take a little bit of time to do this. I'll come back here and I want to show you another example. So I can do something like this. I can also say, all right, now it'd be really nice if you could go into Amazon and I bought some filament for my son's 3D printer. It was 2 sets of black. Can you go process that return for me? One thing that was a mental block for me in using these agents is, and honestly, this has been a block just in my kind of delegation and managing journey, is there are, I got to set up the Amazon or the connector here. There are tasks where it's quicker for me to go do something myself, like to actually go take action or just to go do it versus delegate that task out to an agent. And so if I say, you can go use the Claude connector in Chrome to do this. As I have become comfortable with what these agents can do, I've really had to condition myself to say, how can I delegate more and more things to agents to go do on my behalf versus me doing it myself? And so this is a very simple thing, but I encourage, if you haven't actually tried this, where you give Claude a task to go do in the desktop, to experience what this looks like. It's a different way of thinking. I could just say no longer needed. And I want it to the original payment method. And let's go return it at Whole Foods. Let's just say pause and confirm. Where actually telling the agent to go take a task in a separate system where I can then go follow along. And this is what it looks like on my side. I can go follow along what this looks like right here. Perfect. Where the agent is going to click through and it's going to go find what I have bought. It's going to go take pictures of the page and then go execute on that. This new way of delegating tasks to an agent is I think, a skill where when we hear that, the new skills that you need to have in the age of AI is defining tasks and then delegating those tasks, is something that I've had to be very intentional in cultivating in myself and in my team. Because it would actually just be faster for me to go in myself and do it versus watch it be done. But if I don't have to watch it and it just happens in the background, that is how we start to get scale as individuals, especially if you're running a small company or trying to take on an ambitious project. More and more, you can trust these models to go do things. So Claude Cowork's a great application for those types of use cases, simple business things, setting up automations, having it go use your application and process this. And you can see that I buy a lot of 3D printing filament for my children here, but it will go through and accomplish those sorts of tasks. So that's what I want to share on Claude Cowork. I'm going to share Replit next, and then I'll come back to Claude Code because that's where I assume most of us are spending our time. Replit it's a company that's been around for 10 years, and their mission has always been to allow non-technical people to create technical applications. Up until earlier this year, it was always so-so. They released a version in March called Agent 4. And what you're able to now build, both in terms of websites, applications, mobile apps, but also PowerPoints and some other design areas. This is a tool that I'm always going to have part of my stack because I can quickly go spin up ideas like, let's just go take a quick, AR automation tool. I wanted to go build out an AR automation platform, and I literally gave it, if I go back to the top here, come on. I literally gave it a markdown file of certain types of requirements that I had. And what it builds out for me is kind of the best version of an interface. And I'll open this up here. A best version of an interface that allows me to quickly visualize what my vision is. So I quickly spin this up. I can have an understanding of all of the different ideas that I need from here. It handles everything like kind of the best version of setting up a Postgres database, best UI classifications. It has its own set of skills that are baked into it if you're familiar with Claude Code and skills. And all I have to do is talk to it. There's no repository. It handles all of that. It can do the hosting for you, the front end back end hosting. It has all of the AI integrations. And so if you wanted to connect with OpenAI or Anthropic within your tool, you can quickly do this. If the words like GitHub and repository and terminal are areas that are a little bit intimidating to you, Replit is a creative person's dream because what you envision in your mind, just by explaining it, you can build out fully functional applications. There are entire applications that I have built that I have had reviewed by enterprise teams of people that I have worked with, where there's been a couple of things that they would change, but overall, the architecture is pretty sound. And so this is one that if you are truly non-technical at all, using Replit is a great way to get started and make that happen. Now, the last agent that I want to talk about is the one that is in all of the news. And I'll actually talk about kind of two here because it is ChatGPT 5.5 day after all. But the last agent I want to talk about is Claude Code. And kind of the easiest way to look at this is to run this in the terminal. What Claude Code is technically a harness, which is an operating environment within which an LLM can go and do work for you. And so for Claude Code, it's very similar to Replit, but you have to point it to repositories. There's a lot of additional customization you can do on things like sub-agents or different types of skills that you can leave within here. Rather than show this to you, how I'm using Claude Code is in a tool called Conductor. And I've never actually met the folks from Conductor, but if you go to conductor.build, it's a free tool. And it's a way for me to run simultaneous agents within both Claude Code and OpenAI's Codex. And so what this looks like is this. Let me just go open up a new set here. Perfect. And so I'm within a project right here. And let's actually just go spin up another project. Let me just go find another one here. Let's do my Meridian app. Great. So I'm within this tool called Meridian. I can click on plus. I'm going to add a new workspace. And what's cool about Conductor is it allows me to go choose back and forth between all the different models that I want. And I'm constantly jumping back and forth now between what was 5.4, but now 5.5, and then Opus 4.7. And I'm giving it all the context that I want in order to go make a change. I'm pointing it at a repository, and then I'm using this in multi-thread. So I'm spinning up a task here where I'll say something like, hey, for this application, I want to go work on the dashboard. I want to have a cost metric where I can see the cost of the various agents that are running. So I'll spin up a task like this. While this is running, I'll come in and spin up another task, and I'll say, we actually want to change the overview so that instead of having the menu on the side, we want to have the menu on the top. And Conductor allows me to have multiple agents that are running simultaneously, and I can monitor their progress. It will alert me when there's actions that are needed. So I'm not just working on one task at a time, but I'm actually multi-threading everything that needs to be done within one application. You can do this within the terminal. You can do this within the Claude Code app or the Codex app. Because I call it like poly AI Marines. I like going back and forth between these different models. I'm convinced that if Claude 5.5 is the best today, Opus 4.8 is going to be it tomorrow. Gemini is going to release a version. Grok's going to release a version. And so I like being able to use these different tools or the different AI models and kind of play off of them in order to accomplish what it is that I need to. So I wanted to give you a flavor of kind of how I'm working, how I'm thinking about co-work, Replit, Claude Code, and Codex in these areas. My workflow right now is anything that is business related, where I'm following up with clients, I'm handling invoices, I'm having to log into applications and do things. I'm either using in Claude Cowork. I also have a version of OpenClaw, but maybe we can talk about that in the Q&A. But I'm using those types of agents for that. Anything that is, I need to quickly visualize an application or some sort of prototype, I'm using Replit to go get that interface and the logic right because it's so darn fast. And then when I need to make it real and productionize it, I'm using a tool like Conductor, which is a wrapper around Claude Code and Codex and eventually others to go multi-thread the type of work that I'm doing here. With all of this, I'm able to handle the same type of work that previously would have been a team of 4 to 5 people before, just by leveraging these types of tools and throwing more and more at them. One last thing I'll share that, and then we can open it up for Q&A here. I am a huge believer, and you hear this shared all the time, that like AI is the worst that it's ever going to be today versus what it will be in the future. I am consistently surprised at how good these models are getting at understanding what it is that I want when I give them all of my context. And so one of the best things that I did on all of these tools is for both Claude Code and Codex, I'm giving it CLI access to my database, to my hosting environment, to my email, to my Google Docs, to my linear board, which is my task, my issue tracking application, and then to Asana as well, which is our project management application. I only started doing that 2 months ago, and what those tools can now pick up on without me having to define every single task is remarkable. I wish I would have done that sooner, because previously I had to build out these long PRDs, and I'm still doing that to some extent, but more and more I'm relying on the model to go use all of the context and search for it to best accomplish the output that I'm looking for. So that was a little more than 15 minutes. It was kind of rapid fire in these different tools. I'd love to learn from you and kind of hear what you're doing. I am constantly learning from others in this space, and also happy to answer any questions and get into more details on what I have here.
Awesome, Nick. Thanks so much. That was phenomenal. Feel a bit like I was just hydrated by a water or a fire hose. So thank you. Um, I put a couple of questions in the chat. I would welcome everybody else to. Um, Maybe we can kick things off with Joel. Your question says, what should those joining the workforce be aware of? Looks like Joel has 3 kids entering the workforce, one in finance, one that's a senior at the University of Utah. Do you have any suggestions for those people just joining the workforce, Nick?
So I laugh at this. When I was getting ready to graduate, yeah, I won't tell you when it was, but it wasn't that long ago. And the number one skill that like people would tell me is like, you need to know how to do Excel really, really well. Every business person needs to know how to do Excel. And if you're really good, you're going to know SQL. And so I'm convinced that like what used to be Excel knowledge for us, like, you know, not just doing VLOOKUPs, but doing things like index matching and even getting into macros and maybe doing a little bit of VBA and then just doing basic SQL. My best advice is learn how to build things. Like learn if you have an idea for an application or a dashboard, don't come up with the idea and think that somebody else has to do it. Like literally go into Replit and come up with an idea. Like I'll show you something that I'm doing with my son right now. He's only 8. He's killing me for a Nintendo Switch. I'm saying, why would I buy you a Nintendo Switch when I can get you a Replit subscription? I can teach you how to use WhisperFlow, and you can go create your own multiplayer game to play with your cousins, like that works, that you can log in and actually see each other. My son created this whole thing. He's 8 years old. He doesn't know even really how to type except with 2 fingers, but he's talking to the computer and he made this application and he's sharing it with all of his friends and cousins. And as it comes up with new things, he's building it. So I think the skill of the future is if you have an idea, shorten the distance between having an idea and building it. Do whatever you can to compress that. Change that mindset.
That's good advice, Joel. I would also suggest that maybe all of us are joining a new workforce right now. I mean, this is just phenomenal what we can be doing, and I think it's, to Nick's point, different than what maybe many of us were taught in terms of go learn Excel. I think the link, Barry, the link to the Conductor app was conductor.build. Oh yeah, thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Um, Another question, Nick, if someone's not using agents right now, what is the first thing that they should be doing to learn and try out an agent? Is it just Claude Cowork, or do you have other suggestions?
I think the Claude Cowork is a great way to get started. And what you should do with Claude Cowork is don't give it a task, give it an outcome. Like give it a project that you want it to do and have it go do that. Like that and that's a kind of an interesting way that you have to break the paradigm in your mind between like go write this email for me, go create this PDF. Instead say, hey, I'm trying to accomplish this. Can you just go do that for me and give it some big task, see where it works, see where it doesn't. uh Claude Cowork's a great way to get started. Another tool that I can't recommend fully yet because I only like recommending tools that I have a lot of hands-on experience with, but it's one called Perplexity Computer. Has anyone in here used Perplexity Computer before?
No.
So it's super interesting because what you can do with Perplexity Computer is uh, you can do kind of similar things where you like give it a large task and it goes and like does significant work for you. So if I said something like, hey, I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and I need to sell my fiddly figs. This is something I really have to do. Go find Facebook Marketplace. I want you to go find the best price for those. And can you go post the pictures that are in my Photos app on Facebook Marketplace? and then negotiate the price. I don't want to sell them for less than $20. I'm just going to make something up. Like you can go do something, you can do the same thing in co-work, but I think go experiment with like Claude, co-work, and Perplexity Computer. And I'll say, yeah, go do all that and I'll give you the right permissions. And just go see what's possible there. Treat it like a human though. Like don't give it one task. Just go throw like a big amount of work at it and go watch the steps that it takes. Like how I learned how to use these AI systems is I literally just watched what it did. So I understand what it's good at, what it's not good at.
That's awesome. There's some back and forth in the chat around the delegation. You mentioned, Nick, that you had to change your mindset of what you would delegate to or how you would delegate. Jocelyn had some ideas there in the chat. Do you have suggestions on how to make that mindset shift? What worked for you?
Uh, I'm laughing here about taking an hour to slice an onion, Jocelyn. Sounds like me trying to cook. When I, as I've like really been hands-on and using these different tools, uh, I think I've always been somebody that even when I'm like using a chat GPT, a lot of people they'll assume that chat GPT comes back with like ultimate truth. And if there's one thing wrong with it, then they throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm constantly learning and suspicious of what the tools come back with. Like I'm reviewing the output of all of them. And as I've done that over the 3 years now that these AI tools have been out, I've formed my own sense of where I trust them and where I don't. And I think that's something that individually you have to do uh, in order to in order to feel comfortable with those. Like that's the simple answer. A little more technical answer that I have is particularly with. I'll just show you. I'll show you in Claude. Why not? In Claude, a breakthrough for me was I always forget where they put these when I'm on the spot. I think it's capabilities. Yeah, customize. In Claude, you have these really great things called skills. And what skills allow you to do is you can build in here things that are very, and I'm just showing you the general Anthropic skills. You can build in very specific instruction sets that are the guardrails of what Claude can and cannot do, or what it should always do. To me, this is kind of like traditional programming where you set the rules and it always follows it. I've had a lot of good success with using skills uh, on doing things like always following the same format for proposals I want to write. When I'm going and doing customer research, I always want it to follow this set of skills. Whenever I'm discussing coming up with a pricing model, I always want it to follow like this logic in pricing. And so understanding the concept of skills, if you're someone who's nervous around like what you don't want AI to go off the rails and your workflow requires you to be uh, more deterministic, skills can be a great resource for you.
So Mike had a question about going off the rails. How do you, at what point are you able to realize AI isn't either doing what you want to or is off the rails if you've got a fairly complex solution that you're building?
So one thing that I've done, Mike, and I know you said you're using Claude Code a lot these days. Um, there's some really great frameworks that are out there. And I don't know if this is the best. Like, I don't want you to take this and be like, hey, this is the best way to do it. But there are some great open source repositories that are out here. Uh, so a few that I like, there's one called GBrain that's really good. Uh, and it was originally built for like OpenClaw and for Hermes. But what it does is it provides a very structured review for creating software. So it's a plugin that you can put, and there's a number of these. I'd recommend this one. There's a really good one out there called the GSD framework in GitHub. Yeah, I think it's this one. So these type of extensions on Claude like basically allow you to control it more specifically. I've used those. What I've also done is every time that I finish using a session of Claude, I tell Claude to go review everything that's been built, create markdown files on every library, and then create a navigation so that agents know how to navigate the library and can enforce whatever my standards are. I'm Whenever I did software development before, I was like the worst at commenting on my code. I never did it. So now I just tell AI to go do that constantly. And so I'd say like 1 in every 10 commits is me just literally committing navigation files and explanation files that agents can go use to navigate my repositories. And so I don't just have my Claude MD or my agents.md file at the top, but I'll actually have subsets of those in various modules that I have built out so that the agent doesn't lose context of that at the top when I'm, working on a module nested in a separate folder structure over here. That's another area that I've had a lot of success with.
That's a great point. I think we're coming up on time, and there are a few more questions in the chat, but maybe I'll I'll share, Barry, what I'm doing to address your question. Nick, I would love to have you address Emily's question. Do you think we'll ever be past the need for human QA, at least when originating new agents and outcomes? So, as you're thinking about that, Barry, what I would suggest for novices, I started this 2 weeks ago, and this has been very helpful, is I got on Claude Cowork and I actually just asked it to teach me how best to utilize Claude for the work that I was doing. And it's put together a whole learning plan for me and been really helpful. So, as a novice, that's how I approached it. But, Nick, I'd love you to take the mic and just close up for us with kind of your vision and view of the future on this and need for human in the loop.
Yeah, so I believe that as humans, we're going to, and as creative people, there will always be a need for us to continue to connect dots and put things together. I think for a long time, we have associated like our value with the work that we do in order to achieve the outcome and not necessarily with like building the process to get to that outcome. Something that I don't know, flipped a switch in my brain for me was I actually haven't used Cursor a lot. I used it early on, but Cursor is another one of these AI agent tools. But I don't know why I'm sharing this with you. It's the first thing that comes to mind. There's a video, and I'll put it in the chat here, where Cursor, and now Claude Code and Codex can do this as well. When it goes and does work, it can now spin up a computer, an instance of your application. It can go review the code that's been done, but it will also, if I can see it down here, it will also go record a video of the agent acting like a human, clicking on buttons, and then saying, did that work or not for what the requirements were. When I saw that, it totally changed my mind of like how useful these agents are going to be. And so I have started to think through that if a human can do it in terms of thinking on something, reviewing it, writing it, doing the work, clicking on buttons, I think an agent will ultimately be able to do all of that. I'm still convinced that humans are going to have to be the ones that come up with the new, novel, and unique ideas in order to make all of that happen. And also give permission to the agents to say, hey, go do this. So this was something that was a total mindset shift for me to say, oh my gosh, it can go not just like review the code and do the regression testing that way, but spin up a computer, record the video, analyze the frames of the video, and say that did it pass or not. I think we're still very early in how good all this is going to get.
Yeah, agreed. So typically we'll end at quarter to the top of the hour. We've got a bunch of questions, Nick. If you're willing to stay for a few more minutes and just go through the chat and address any of those questions, I'll leave this room open and we can do that. Otherwise, maybe people can reach out to you, Nick, individually.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
Yeah, happy to talk. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, or on X. And so either way, Nick Pericle, no space, you can find me. I'm happy to go through the questions right now if you'd like.
Cool.
That work?
Yeah.
Uh, so Barry, I get this question a lot. Like we went through and like ripped on a whole bunch of these things. If I have to recommend one tool to use, just go use Claude. You will get 80, 90% of the benefit of versus jumping back and forth. Just go use Claude and get really good at that platform. I That'd be my simple recommendation. Go use Claude Chat, do as much as you can there. Go experiment with Claude Cowork. And then if you're in software development, use Claude Code. Else, if you're not, Cowork will get you most of what you need to do on the business side. That's what I would recommend.
So does Claude do things better or different than chat? Because when I talk to people who are really in bed with chat, oh, chat can do anything Claude can do. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Uh, there's different benchmarks and they're constantly going back and forth. Uh, for me, Claude can do more than chat can, and for two reasons. Uh, well, one reason really. They built Claude to first be really good at writing software. And then they realized when it's really good at writing software, it's really good at working with Excel, creating PowerPoints, creating visuals, creating designs, doing analysis. They built ChatGPT as a general purpose LLM that, yes, software is an important part, but it wasn't at the forefront. It's becoming that way because everyone determined that this was the right thing to do. I think Claude is still going to be the best one for at least the next year or so. Uh, so that's what I would recommend. Don't get overwhelmed with all the different models. You just go use Claude. It's it's really good.
Okay.
Joshua, do you have to prompt to do that nav build out? What do you mean by that? What nav
Yeah,
build
you
out
were
do you
talking
mean?
about the what you do at the end of your sessions, like so that you can actually develop that pattern for your agents later.
Oh,
Like
got it.
instead of
Yeah.
commenting your code, like how do you drive that sort of thing? If it's something simple or if it probably it's very complicated, but it would be super helpful. I've been trying to figure out how to do it myself and sort of running into
Sure.
those walls.
Okay, so the first thing that I did is I went to Claude, like literally went. Oh, hold on.
You know, when you just said, "Hey, can you do this?" And
Just a
of
second.
course,
No, I literally went to Claude and I said, "Hey, I don't want to have to explain like this complex thing that I want to do. This is what I want to do. Help me think through it. What should I be thinking about? And then I want you to create for me a skill file. Like literally tell it, I want you to
okay,
create for me a skill file, which is just a plain text markdown file.
right, no, definitely, yeah.
And then I put that into my repository.
Okay,
And then when I'm in Claude Code, I say, hey,
okay.
I want you to go comment, like run the comment process.
Mhm.
And it goes and finds that and it runs that comment process.
Okay, cool.
That's
All
what it
right.
does.
I'll do that. Yeah, because I mean, I'm a software architect by training, so it's like I do a lot of like design early on, but then like how do you get it to be as built is always something I'm struggling with a little bit. So cool. Appreciate that.
Yep. Yeah. I usually go to Claude when I have an idea. I'm like, I go to Claude, work it out, just chat back and forth, and then I figure out how to build it into a system.
Awesome.
Rolf, what subscription levels do you use? All of them max. Like literally, I'm paying for $200 a month for ChatGPT, for Claude, for Perplexity. I'm not a huge fan of Gemini, to be honest, guys. Like, and I cannot stand Copilot. Like every time I've tried to use Copilot or people that I work with, and they're like, well, Copilot's in Microsoft. I go, Copilot is emails and documents and summarizing Teams meetings. I think they will catch up, but it's just not state of the art. But specifically, what I'm paying for Claude, $200 a month. I'm paying for ChatGPT, $200 a month. I'm paying for Perplexity, $200 a month. And then I'm paying for Replit, but I have a company version of that. And then there's other small ones that I use, but those are the primary ones. Don't start at $200. Do $20 a month until you consistently hit the limits. And then you'll go up to $100 and then you'll go up more. But just start with the $20 a month until you hit the limits. Don't go higher than that. The only reason I have the $200 a month ones is because I'm using them often. And I'm not just using them through chat, I'm also using them through the CLI and OAuth and stuff like that. Uh, seems like the Wild West where people can create anything freely. What about the case for protecting IP made with AI? Oh man, Scott. So in the terms and conditions of these models, at least from what everything that I've read and what the market is reading, is that you own all of the IP that you are creating with these tools. Like it's yours, you own the output of it, you can work on it that way. I don't know what IP looks like in the future. I'm convinced that there will be a time that if you come up with a brand new product, brand new software, and you go deploy it online, that within 3 days, there will be 15 copies of that. Like they will be just as good as yours, if not better, for your market, for other markets. Because right now I can go point at any tool and I can say, like, go recreate that for me. Like I can literally just go point at it, like take screenshots and go recreate it. And it's not as good as the original version, but if I spent time on it, it could be. I think the moats in the future are relationships, like trust and relationships. I think like total addressable markets for products are going to shrink down, and there's going to be much more niche software. But then also moats are going to be things like, do you have network effects of multiple people on your platform and data versus the automation that the tool provides there. So that's what at least that's what I'm reading, and that's what I'm building towards is the tools that I build out there. I can't just trust that the technology is the value in and of itself. It's how I'm positioning it, how I'm making like the brand and the network, but also what am I building around that even if someone had the same platform, they couldn't provide the non-technical things that I'm trying to build into that around the solution.
Good. Yeah. Thanks. Great answer. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Risk in healthcare from Adeyemi. This is a great one. You know what? Because we're having fun here, I'll share this. Does anyone in here listen to Nate B. Jones on YouTube? A few of you. Okay. I have no idea how this guy pumps out the content that he does. To me, he's like the single best voice in thinking about AI these days. And he puts out like an absolute banger video every day. That's like 30 minutes. He did one recently that was about Apple. And we all wonder like, what the heck is Apple doing? So I'm going to post this in here. He talked about Apple like back in the 70s and how Apple, and this is before my time, but how Apple originally had like really complex
Devon, the number one rated business topic.
Taylor, you're going to be listening to him now. How Apple originally like sold to the prosumers, how they were selling to those who were really technical and focused on it, but then they democratized technology and basically built it so that you bought the product, like the hardware, and then the software just comes bundled on it. Apple made a really interesting move with their new CEO, who's a hardware guy now. And basically what they're saying is, with what happened with Mac Minis, with how powerful iPhones are, with how good the Mac silicon is, Apple's going to come out and they're going to provide the hardware that makes using these AI models easy for people like my mom. That's what's going to happen. And as a result, it will also be privacy first because it will be local. So healthcare, law, places like that, more and more will come from that. All right. I think we hit all of them. Hopefully that was fun and you guys learned some stuff.
For
I
sure.
love talking about this.
Awesome. Nick, thanks so much. If anybody has questions, please reach out to Nick. And yeah, really appreciate your time and the education, Nick. Thank you so much.
Awesome stuff, guys.
Thanks all. We'll see you next week.
Hi, everybody.